Chapter 1. The Unsettling Introspection. Situated deep behind a wooded woodland in the sleepy village of Willowbrook, the centuries-old Ravenscroft Estate home loomed ominously watchful. The house had long been the focus of terrifying folklore, with rumors of disappearances, hauntings, and curses that gave the locals the chills. A young lady called Emily Sinclair was lured to the mansion's uncanny appeal one stormy night. She came to Willowbrook to settle her affairs after inheriting the estate from a distant relative. She had always found the mansion fascinating, with its imposing presence and sinister past. Ravenscroft Estate loomed in the moonlight, a menacing figure as Emily got closer. There was a constant torrent of rain and distant thunderclaps. Through the curtain of rain and darkness, she could just make out the intricacies of the facade of the mansion. Emily pulled through the enormous oak doors and stepped into the estate, holding a very old key. The interior was a maze of poorly lit chambers and dusty hallways, each crammed with fading pictures of long-dead Ravenscrofts and forgotten artifacts. Emily felt a chill go down her spine as she saw a room with an elaborate full-length mirror in the center of the home. The mirror had a strange, unsettling brightness on its surface, and it was framed in dark wood. Emily's reflection in the mirror appeared to sway and change as she stared at it. She was shocked to see how her appearance changed to that of an otherworldly woman, a dreamy figure dressed in a flowing robe. The woman had a melancholy, eerie look in her eyes. Emily didn't have time to respond before the ghostly figure stretched out of the mirror, seemingly attempting to escape its strange confines. Emily staggered back in horror, shock and astonishment throbbing in her heart. The space surrounding her appeared to contract, the walls throbbing with an unearthly force. Emily's reflection started to writhe and warp, reflecting the suffering of the ghostly woman imprisoned in the mirror. Emily turned and ran, desperate to get out of the terrifying chamber, the ghostly figure's laughter reverberating in her ears with every step. She locked the cursed chamber behind her and slammed the door behind her, but the horror of what she had seen would never leave her. Emily recognized that she was trapped in the evil clutches of the midnight mirror when she stood in the darkened hallway, soaking from the rain and shaking with terror. Her path to Willowbrook had taken an unanticipated and terrifying detour, and now she was obligated to the eerie past of the estate and its ghostly occupant. Emily Sinclair's arrival at Ravenscroft Estate and her unsettling experience with the cursed mirror marked the end of Chapter 1. She was startled and terrified as the ghostly apparition imprisoned in the mirror stretched out to her. Now that Emily was involved in the mansion's sinister past and its evil curse, the scene was set for an eerie, supernatural horror narrative. Chapter 2. The Spirits of the Dead. The eerie mysteries of Ravenscroft Estate, together with the evil mirror, cast a dark shadow over Emily Sinclair's days and nights. She couldn't get rid of the sensation that the ghostly image in the mirror was attempting to speak to her and deliver a message from the other side. With fear, Emily spent her days exploring the estate, her footsteps resonating through the poorly lighted hallways. The cursed mirror was still imprisoned in the mirror chamber, which drew her in. It was difficult to ignore its unsettling light as it appealed to her like a siren's call. Emily saw the ghostly apparition had reappeared one evening as she stood in front of the mirror. The woman had desperate and yearning eyes that looked right into her soul. Emily sensed a strange relationship between her and the imprisoned soul, one that went beyond space and time. The ghostly apparition muttered, "Help me," her voice a menacing echo in the space. Emily gave in to the allure of the mirror's charms. With shaking fingers, she extended her hand and just barely touched the glass. And chilly force shot through her veins as her palm touched the surface of the mirror. An unearthly presence seemed to come alive in the room. Emily was surrounded by dancing shadows as a haunting wind blew across the room, bringing with it a chorus of muffled whispers and somber wails. It appeared as though a doorway to another world had opened, as the mirror itself began to ripple like water. Emily started to wobble and move in the mirror, reflecting the agony of the trapped soul. she suddenly understood that the mirror served as a portal to a world where the living and the dead coexist. Emily was filled with a renewed sense of purpose and resolved to free the chained ghostly figure and help her find peace. She was aware that the secret to their rescue lay in exposing the sinister past of the Ravenscroft Estate. In the days that followed, Emily threw herself into her studies, going through ancient Ravenscroft family letters, diaries, and notebooks. Horrifying stories of curses, prohibited rites, and a sad love story that ended in betrayal and misery emerged from the town's archives. Emily started to put the mansion's past together, a history tainted by a curse that lasted for centuries and an enraged ghost. It was discovered that Isabella Ravenscroft, a young lady who had met a horrible end at the hands of her own family, was the ghostly apparition imprisoned within the mirror. Emily couldn't shake the sensation that the curse was entangling her in its web and that her own destiny was linked to the terrible past occurrences as she dug more into the mansion's mysteries. But she was resolved to face the evil powers who had Isabella imprisoned and to break free from the curse, both herself and the phantom apparition. Emily's increasing bond with Isabella Ravenscroft, the ghostly apparition, and her resolve to learn the truth about the sinister past of the Ravenscroft Estate marked the end of Chapter 2. As she dug into the mansion's history, she discovered tales of treachery and curses that disclosed Isabella's terrible end. The curse began to gradually affect Emily's own destiny, which created the ideal environment for a terrifying investigation into the paranormal and a search for atonement. Chapter 3. The Revealed Curse. Emily Sinclair discovered a network of sinister secrets that had been meticulously kept hidden for decades as she dug more into the history of the Ravenscroft Estate. From being a simple curiosity, the cursed mirror had evolved into a doorway, leading to a realm of evil powers and angry ghosts. Emily's desire to lift the curse and release Isabella Ravenscroft from her ethereal confines has taken over her life. Every night, she would stand in front of the mirror with her palm resting on the glass, attempting to speak with the spirit that was imprisoned. Isabella began to whisper more loudly, filling the room with her somber lament. She talked about the curse that had kept her confined to the mansion, about treachery, about a love that had turned sour. With a sorrowful heart full of pity for the tortured soul, Emily listened. Emily had a glimpse of the past one evening as she stood in front of the mirror. She saw with hope-filled eyes and raven-black hair that Isabella, a young woman, fell in love with Nathaniel, a mystery stranger. Their love had been outlawed, a covert relationship kept from the Ravenscroft family's prying eyes. However, as their love deepened, the family's mistrust and animosity also increased. The vision unveiled a terrifying act of treachery that had caused Isabella and Nathaniel to become estranged from one another. The Ravenscroft family had plotted to curse Nathaniel, condemning Isabella to a life of suffering and linking his soul to the mirror. Emily was left with a terrifying understanding as the image faded. It would take more than just setting Isabella free to break the curse. It would also need facing the evil entity that had deceived the Ravenscroft family and kept them all trapped in a dark cycle. Emily walked into the mansion's underground chambers, determined to find the truth and look for relics and clues that might contain the key to lifting the curse. She discovered antiquated books and grimoires that described sinister rites and unlawful agreements with supernatural beings. Her understanding of the curse's evil aspects grew as she gained more knowledge. The mansion itself was cursed, and the curse thrived on the anguish and misery of anyone who lived there, not just the Ravenscroft family. Emily realized that in order to reveal the creature that had captured Isabella and the Ravenscroft family, she needed to face the evil power. But to do so would mean venturing into the dangerous domain of the paranormal, where evil spirits and archaic forces reigned supreme. Even as Emily braced herself to face the evil that hid beneath the mansion, she couldn't shake the sense that the cursed mirror and the malevolent spirit, which craved for freedom, were irrevocably tied to her own destiny. Emily's realization of the devious betrayal that had resulted in the curse and her resolve to face the evil entity responsible for it marked the end of Chapter 3. As she explored the mansion's hidden rooms, She came upon old manuscripts that explained the ominous nature of the curse. Emily was getting ready to take a risky detour into the paranormal, preparing them for the big showdown with the evil force that had captured them all. Chapter 4. Dealing with the Evil Force. A feeling of urgency overcame Emily Sinclair as she dug further into the history of the Ravenscroft Estate and the curse that had entrapped Isabella and the Ravenscroft family's generations. She was aware that the moment had arrived to face the evil that hid in the shadows of the palace. A treasure trove of antiquated literature and artifacts that Emily had amassed spoke to the nature of the curse and the malevolent force behind it. She discovered that the curse was the result of an agreement with the Shadowweaver, an evil and old ghost that thrived on the suffering and hopelessness of those it trapped. Emily set off on a treacherous quest to face the Shadowweaver, driven by her determination to lift the curse and set Isabella free. Deep inside the mansion, she had found a hidden room that was supposed to be the home of the evil monster. The room was a mysterious maze of sigils and symbols, with unsettling patterns adorning the walls that gave out an unearthly vibe. A massive mirror that reflected a warped and terrifying vision of reality stood in the middle of the room. Emily could feel the Shadowweaver's suffocating presence intensifying as she got closer to the mirror. It attempted to entice her into its web of darkness with menacing whispers. Emily took a deep breath and, her heart full with resolve, started to recite an incantation, a spell she had found in an old grimoire. The incantation posed a challenge to the Shadowweaver's authority and a request for Isabella's spirit to be freed. The room shook, and the reflection on the mirror wavered like gloomy water. The evil force materialized in front of Emily, taking the shape of a moving mass of hopelessness and gloom. Its eyes shone with evil intent, and its voice sounded through the room in a spooky whisper. The Shadowweaver growled, "You dare challenge me, mortal?" Emily maintained her position, her eyes unblinking. She talked of the lives that the creature had devastated, the anguish and suffering it had inflicted, and the curse that tied them all. She faced the evil energy head-on, determined to end the cycle of darkness with all her compassion and selflessness. The intensity of their meeting caused the chamber to tremble, and Emily felt as though decades of suffering and hopelessness were bearing down on her. However, she was confident in her ability to face the darkness and permanently drive the Shadowweaver from her life. With one last, powerful invocation, Emily sent a wave of unadulterated love and light. With a howl of anguish so loud it could be heard, the Shadowweaver's shape writhed and twisted as the light engulfed it. The curse that had befallen the Ravenscroft Estate broke like glass as the evil force vanished into thin air. The house itself appeared to exhale in relief, the agony and sorrow of the past no longer resonating through its walls. Emily realized Isabella had been set free, that her soul had at last found tranquility. The ghostly woman in the mirror grinned and gave thanks with her eyes before disappearing into the light. The Ravenscroft Estate underwent a transformation when the curse was lifted. The mansion's once oppressive mood subsided, and it became a bright, welcoming space. With Isabella and herself both having found salvation via her quest, Emily had a feeling of closure and contentment. Though it was no longer a place of gloom and sorrow, Emily knew that her connection to the Ravenscroft Estate would persist as she left the chamber and into the beautiful night. It was once again a haven of comfort and tranquility. Emily's valiant battle with the Shadowweaver, the evil entity responsible for the curse, brought Chapter 4 to a close. By means of love, selflessness, and perseverance, she drove the creature away and broke the curse, so releasing Isabella's soul. With a deep sense of satisfaction and completion, Emily knew that her journey had come to a conclusion and that the Ravenscroft Estate had been converted into a haven of light and salvation.